So today we have Anthony DeStefano, who's our guest, and I personally was very excited. I was talking to Kevin about this because if many of you remember, we interviewed him maybe a few months ago about his book on the angels. But today, Anthony is joining us to discuss his newest book, Greenlee Is Growing. Anthony, congratulations on the new book. Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Yes. Well, you know, again, we have Greenlee Is Growing here on set, and this is a children's picture book that celebrates the 4 seasons of the year, and you have it corresponding to the 4 seasons of a person's life. Can you expand a little bit of how that comes to play in the book itself?
Yeah, you nailed it exactly right. It's about the 4 seasons of the year and how they align with and correspond to the seasons of life. We meet the main character, whose name is Greenlee. It's a little bit of an unusual name, but it sort of reminds a person of the word evergreen, which ties into the theme of the book. We meet this little girl when she's 3.5 years old in the springtime of her childhood, and the book follows her along right into the summer of her youth and the autumn of her adulthood. And finally, by the end of the book, she's a gray-haired old lady knitting by the fire in the winter of her life. So it really shows the whole lifespan of this person. And I wanted to write a book like this primarily because I wanted to show children that they shouldn't be afraid of change. Children are very afraid of change. I also wanted to show that there's a possibility for profound joy in every season of life, even in winter. Even in those tough days of winter, there's always the hope of a new springtime ahead. And for us Christians, that new springtime is heaven and the resurrection. And so I'm hopeful that this book could be a positive Lenten and Easter message it could bring to children.
You know, Anthony, you said children are hesitant of change. I think we all are, but kids have beautiful simplicity about them. Brian, who's right on this camera, his son Jack was here yesterday visiting. He came to Mass, and I was there in the chapel and just kind of in awe of his gentleness and his simplicity as a child. How can we as adults continue to learn from kids and become as Jesus admonishes us to become more childlike?
Well, you know, when he said that, our Lord was talking about having a childlike openness to things. And of course, childhood is a wondrous time. G.K. Chesterton said that inside those oversized heads on a little child, it's just like the 7th day of creation. Everything is new again. And for us to have that spirit of appreciating everything as if it's a gift from God, I think that's one of the most important things in order to be happy, you know. And we talk about that in this book. But you also said something I want to address, and that's about children being afraid. Children are afraid. Imagine you're a little kid, and the world is so big. The world is a scary place. Things that adults take for granted, children are very scared of. Going for a haircut or a routine appointment at the doctor or the dentist, first day of school, and then more serious things like the death of a pet or the death of a grandparent. These are very petrifying things for children because they involve change and sometimes permanent change. Now, we know that change is a part of life, but it's become such a cliche. And so that's why in this book, what I've tried to do is try to make that truth about change being a part of life resonate more, because I show this little girl change. She goes from being a little girl to an old lady in 32 pages. That's a huge change. And yet throughout the whole book, she's smiling, she's youthful, she's enjoying life, even at the end. And I'm hopeful that one of the things children get out of this is that while it's okay and normal to be afraid of change, even that good will come out of and can come out of even the most frightening of those changes.
Yeah, no, that's so well said, Anthony. And even specifically for this book, and then also broad spectrum, where did the inspiration come? Was there someone specific in your life, whether, I know you had mentioned a goddaughter or maybe a niece or a nephew, of where the inspiration came specifically for this book, and then also the other books that you've written both for adults and for children? Where do you continue to, just reap your sources of knowledge to create more books for us to read?
Well, that's a good question. And I did, the springboard for this book was my goddaughter, my niece, whose name is Greenlee. And I wanted to write a book for her, but she's got this uncommon name. And so I thought, what can I do? How can I make this into a children's book, something that's important? And I thought about the word perspective. I think it's never too early to teach children about perspective. So many of us today, we just live too much for the present moment. We care about instant gratification and instant pleasures. Everything is about what I want this, I want that, I want the other thing, and I want it now. And if I don't get it, watch out. Well, that's the recipe for a very unhappy life, because as we all know, we don't always get what we want now. In fact, what we get in the present moment so often is irritations and pain and suffering. The old medieval monks used to have an expression in Latin, quid hoc ad eternitatem. What is this in light of eternity? What is this problem I'm having right now in light of all the big things in life, suffering and death and heaven and hell? You've got to have that kind of perspective in order to avoid living in anxiety and overwhelm. And so I've tried to get that across a little bit in this book, try to give children a glimpse of that long view of life.
Greenlee and her friends and family and all the animal friends that she has, they're beautifully illustrated by Louise. Is Louise someone you have been working with in your other books?
I have not. You know, I pick a different illustrator I pick my illustrators based on the mission and purpose of the book. So Monet was talking about the book on angels, and before that there was a book on Our Lady. And the purpose of those books was to show children that Our Lady and the angels are real. And so I wanted to use an artist who was able to convey photorealistic details to show that, you know, the angels are not pretend or cartoons. They really exist. But the point of this book was to show the joy of life, the fact that life is beautiful. And so I wanted to find an artist who had a joyful style. And Louise Ellis is a Brit. She lives up in northern England. And I think she's done a wonderful job at conveying the joy of life. Every single page is bursting with color, brimming with life. There's flowers, trees, there's hundreds of animals and insects. Kids will have a good time trying to pick out all the animals. And what she's done, I think, Bishop, is not only convey that life is beautiful, but she's managed to show that God is a God of life and abundant life.
Mm-hmm. And she really did.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for writing this book, for introducing us to it and its beautiful illustrations. Where can people get a copy of this story of 4 seasons, Greenlee Is Growing?
Well, I'm lucky it's being published by Penguin Random House, so it's got a huge distribution system, and so you can get it online at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Love to have people patronize our Catholic bookstores. It's available pretty much, to use a cliche, wherever books are sold.
Anthony DeStefano, thank you so much. Greenlee Is Growing, available all over the place for you and your kids. A wonderful story, beautifully illustrated. Thanks, Anthony, so much, and have a blessed Lent.
Thank you.
Thank
the
you,
same
Anthony.
to both of you.